Dear colleagues, we are about to start, so please take your seats. Okay, good afternoon, everyone, dear colleagues. First of all, I would like to welcome Mrs. Roxana Mînzatu, Executive Vice President Designate for People, Skills and Preparedness, to this confirmation hearing, which is jointly held by the Committee on Employment and Social Affairs and by the Committee on Culture and Education. I would also like to welcome the members of our committees, the chair and the vice chair and members of the invited committees, namely the Committee on Women's Rights and Gender Equality and the Committee on Civil Liberties, Justice and Home Affairs. I am happy to be co-chairing this confirmation hearing with my colleague Nela Riel, the chair of the Committee on Culture and Education. Also welcome to Commission and Council colleagues who are here today and to those following us online, as this confirmation hearing is being streamed live, and it will also be available afterwards on the EP website via video recording. Before this confirmation hearing, the Committee on Legal Affairs assessed the question of potential or actual conflict of interests. It has raised no objection to the holding of the confirmation hearing of the Executive Vice President Designate, Roxana Mînzatu. Furthermore, the Commissioner-designate has replied to a number of written questions. We acknowledge your responses to the horizontal written questions and your readiness to cooperate with the European Parliament. This is particularly important in the context of the revision of the framework agreement between the European Parliament and the Commission, in particular regarding your engagement to be regularly present in committees and plenaries, to follow up on Parliament's legislative initiatives, and to timely share information to Parliament as co-legislator and arm of the budgetary authority. We count on the full implementation of these commitments and emphasize the Commission's role as an honest broker in all legislative procedures and the interinstitutional negotiations, ensuring equal treatment of Parliament and the Council. I equally count on your full cooperation to inform our committees in advance of all upcoming proposals, with detailed justifications for those requiring urgent action. This will ensure transparency and allow Parliament to properly exercise its prerogatives. Before I give the floor to my co-chair, as chair of the EMPL committee, I would like to express our dissatisfaction as regards the title of the Commissioner-designate's portfolio, which we think does not reflect entirely her future responsibilities, namely the aim of strengthening the European Pillar of Social Rights, in particular with respect to jobs and social rights. From the EMPL committee perspective, it is of utmost importance to ensure a strong and consistent policy for strengthening quality jobs and the welfare state, with strong coordination of contributions from many commissioners designate to social and employment policies. I will now hand over to my co-chair.
Thank you very much, Lee, and also from my side a warm welcome. We do share as the CULT committee the dissatisfaction regarding the title of this portfolio, as education is also not mentioned. We consider that education goes beyond strengthening Europe's human capital. Education policy is key to providing access to learning and also delivering effective and relevant knowledge, skills, values and competences, contributing to a better prepared and resilient future generation. Therefore, the fact that education is not explicitly mentioned in the title of this portfolio is both confusing and also very regrettable. Having in mind the recent societal trends and electoral outcomes, the Cult Committee believes that more than ever in the next 5 years, education will be fundamental in preventing discrimination and strengthening our democratic values and in enhancing democratic participation. After having said this, from a procedural point of view, let me recall the structure of this confirmation hearing. The Commissioner-designate is invited to make an opening statement, oral, of no longer than 15 minutes. At the end of the meeting, she will also have 5 minutes for a closing statement. Then, after the introduction of Mrs. Mînzatu, we will turn to the questions from our members. The confirmation hearing will be structured in 4 rounds. First round of political groups coordinators with 5-minute slots each, 1-minute question, 2 minutes for the answer from the designate commissioner, with a possibility for a follow-up question from the same member, no longer than 1 minute again, and then again 2-minute answers from the commissioner-designate. Second round of questions with 3-minute slots each, based on the overall distribution of speaking time among the political groups, including the representatives from the non-attached members. And the third round of questions by the chair and vice chair of the invited committees with 3-minute slots each. And then a final round of questions by the political groups in reverse order, also again 3-minute slots each. Please note that all slots of 3 minutes will be divided in 1 minute for the question and then 2 minutes for the answer from the commissioner-designate. And at the end, we will conclude the confirmation hearing. Interpretation today will be available in 23 languages. And I would like to make clear that we will need to be very, very strict with the time, because if we run late, some members will not be able to take the floor. 10 to 15 seconds before the time lapse, the star will appear and we will ask the speakers to conclude. And as a last result, and people having been in my previous hearing know that I'm very strict on it, we will actually mute you. This is not because I'm unkind, it's just like the last resort. And I really beg you to really stick to this 1 minute. And now, actually, I would like to give the floor to Mrs. Mînzatu for her opening statement of 15 minutes.
Thank you so much, honorable members. Today, I ask for your trust. Trust that in these next 5 years, I, as Executive Vice President for People, Skills and Preparedness, will be able to guide our strong social Europe, to guide the overall work of a strong social Europe by empowering all generations, by making our citizens more resilient in society, in democracies, and in the labor market. To do that, you need to know who I am, what I stand for, and where I come from. First then, where I come from. I come from Brașov. It's a city in the center of Romania, a spectacular city, once a trade center lifted by the guilds in the medieval age, and in the 20th century it was an industrial city. As I was growing up in Brașov in the 80s, it was a worker city, my own parents included. And it was in Brașov, almost exactly 37 years ago, that on a sunny election day on the 15th of November 1987, the first Romanian revolt against the communist regime erupted. Many workers then took to the streets because of hunger, because of in-work poverty. That first attempt failed. The rebellion was quickly stifled. Some of them were tortured and imprisoned. But it was the beginning of the end. And I can still remember the excitement, the sense of possibility as communism collapsed in Romania 2 years later in December 1989. Then Romanians embraced democracy, European values, with each individual story, with each aspiration. And for someone recently asked me To name some famous writers or some famous fighters from whom I draw inspiration from, I will tell you, no writer, no fighter. I draw inspiration from ordinary people, from those that are around us, from their wisdom, their resilience, their suffering, their hopes, and their dreams. It's the people that we meet every day in our lives, and that, if you confirm my appointment, will be the starting point of my work. The citizens of Europe have gone through many uncertainty in the last 5 years. COVID first, then the war at our borders, then companies relocating, energy prices going through the roof, and the inflation fueling poverty. And year after year, our regions face new climate-driven disasters. And we have all seen the unfortunate events that recently happened in Spain. The bottom line is that Europe is an athlete in a very complex competition, one that needs to step up on its preparation, on its training, on building its stamina, so that it can both empower and protect its people from young age to old age. It is a time when security and open strategic autonomy matter more than ever. But it is also a time when guiding principles of the European project also matter more than ever. Democracy, through rights and values respected. Freedom, through opportunities and choices. Safety, and as well, and most importantly, the European social model, the jewel of our project, that continuous promise of a better today and tomorrow together in a united, strong Europe. Europeans and all sectors of our societies have worked together, showed resilience, and done their bit so far. But we have even higher expectations of what still needs to be done in the future to improve everyday lives at work, at home, in our surrounding natural environment, in society, not just for us, but for the future generations. That is why, first and foremost, I want to start by listening to people in each and one of our member states. Because everything in my mandate is about their needs and especially their engagement. So as soon as I take office, I launch an EU-wide social policy dialogue on Europe in action for the people. To ensure that work and well-being remain in sync, we should reflect not only on the skills needed for the future, but also on how people's expectations about work and work-life balance are shifting and which interventions can contribute towards fairer and more sustainable working conditions. I'll be present on the ground in the first year of my mandate, engaging with all relevant stakeholders, social partners, governments, national parliaments, the citizens, the youth organizations. I want to be present and I will listen. I want to launch an inclusive debate, a democratic engagement on the future of our well-being, of our work, and of our skills. And jointly, this is how we will fuel one of my key commitments as entrusted in the mission letter for 2025, a new action pillar, a new action plan for the European pillar of social rights, thus reinforcing social protection and activating policies to underpin well-functioning labor markets and social welfare systems. Honourable members, my intention is to structure my mandate on 3 pillars equally important. It's not the order, they are all equally strong and important. The first pillar is preparedness, but in a wider sense, individual and societal preparedness. Mulți dintre noi au trecut prin mai multe schimbări.
Many of us have lived through a lot of change in our recent lives than we could ever have imagined. Europeans will experience much more change in the years to come, and therefore we must build a culture of preparedness for the future so that we can cope with panache with all the changes and their potential risks. The essential vitamins to prepare ourselves for that are education, skills, preparedness begins in mandatory schooling, but it depends on lifelong learning. The routine that we as adults should also have. In this field, I'm convinced that the European space of education can genuinely lead to added value. The objective of a quality education and occupational training for everyone, with fair access across all the EU's territory, in every school, in every university, in every community, beyond the borders, motivating our teachers and building the basis of what we already know has worked, such as the Erasmus programme. Erasmus Plus is a key example of what Europe does best. But we can't work alone, we work better together. For example, a system for building up basic skills for the young generation. We see an alarming deficit in the number of teachers in most member states. We need more skills in key areas such as science, technology, engineering and maths, which are important for our competitiveness. Many Europeans don't have the necessary digital skills.
At a young age, are the foundation to be able to reskill or upskill as an adult. This allows one to benefit from opportunities when the economy has to transform or has to adapt. I will also ensure that our labor force, such as our builders, our chefs, our nurses, our carers, our electricians, are highly trained and able to move freely in a market that recognizes their skills and qualifications. And for that reason, I will propose an initiative on skills portability. Skills portability, that means people and their skills can circulate freely and contribute to a stronger internal market to support European industries, European startups, European SMEs. In addition, I will look into a system that gives European recognition for vocational and educational training in a similar manner to what we are doing in the higher education initiatives. Now, I'm conscious as I speak that I'm outlining actions I'd be leading, because you need to be clear on where I'd lead in relation to people, skills, and preparedness. Of course, in my mandate, I will work very closely with the President, with all the members of the College, because cooperation is key for a strong social Europe. Naturally, I will work specifically close with my fellow commissioners if I am confirmed by you. Some of the achievements of this broad collaboration will draw on the Ninisto report, and the Commission will propose an EU Preparedness Union strategy. Now to a very important pillar. I will not call it the second. It's a key pillar. Quality jobs. In meeting many of you, I have heard your deep concerns. The need to ensure a fair transition, so that our union's competitiveness goes hand in hand with the rights and protections of our workers. A deep concern for quality jobs. A quality job provides decent wages and fair working conditions. A quality job offers the same rights, whether offline or online, whether nationals posted or third country nationals, regardless of the type of contract. A quality job empowers learning and growing and training. And a quality job is based on strong social dialogue and effective collective bargaining. Collaborating with the social partners to create a strong and protective framework for workers, starting with the quality job roadmap, will be a priority for the first months of my mandate. At the same time, I will make our social acquis, I will make sure that our social acquis is implemented, starting with the minimum wage directive. I will work to ensure that the right to disconnect, that we will improve our workers' intra-EU mobility conditions. And I have the ambition to complete the modernization of our social security coordination. I will strengthen our European Labour Authority. So, preparedness, quality jobs, first two pillars, if you confirm me in this role. Français. Le troisième élément d'importance égale est...
The third equally important element is social fairness. I will work to help all those who have the greatest need, all, whatever their age, their gender, their religion, or where they live. Here are a few important facts about the state of our social union. A quarter of our children live on the brink of poverty, a quarter of them. Our union has 100 million people living with disabilities, many of whom would like to work, but who cannot. We have almost 1 million homeless people, and I will make this point to you that we can eradicate homelessness in Europe. And another thing, however incredible it seems in 2024, is that we have women who make up half our society still fighting for equality with men. Man-woman equality will lie at the heart of my action and will run through all my efforts. These are the challenges that this Commission will tackle with the necessary energy. Just to name a few of the tools I'll use, I will strengthen our European Child Guarantee, and I'll ensure that our first ever plan for affordable housing includes sound solutions for those in greatest vulnerability, and also for a European policy against poverty. We'll tackle the root causes, whatever the age, gender, geographic situation, or energy poverty, transport insecurity, or a lack of basic services or housing.
To respond better to increasing needs in Europe and enhance people's dignity to live independently and safely. We must improve as well the working conditions, the training, the recognition of carers, so more informal caregivers can access or return to our labour markets. We must provide more quality, affordable childcare, so parents who want to can return to full-time work. The fundamental priority is that we invest in children, and supporting children is crucial for their integration in the educational system and for their mental health, which is important for all ages. Childcare is an investment in our families, in our economies, and in our societies, all in all. Honourable members, this next Commission will be an investment Commission, catering for the increasing and different needs of our peoples, of our workers. Social economy will be one sector that we will boost. I have implemented cohesion policy in Romania, and my role will be also to achieve higher impact from the European Social Fund Plus, to ensure that the Social Climate Fund can powerfully mitigate the social impact of our green transition. But our challenges need more tools. Public and private social investment, social conditionalities for public funding. You can count on me to work with my colleagues, commissioners, to deliver on game-changing solutions so that our pillar for social rights become a reality. Closing, I know that my task is one that is hugely ambitious, but let me just quote this. The greatest risk to most of us is not that we aim too high and we do not reach that level, but that it is too low and we reach it. That is my promise to you for the next 5 years, working energetically together with this House. You can count on my engagement, and I'm looking forward to our dialogue today.
Thank you very much. So we now start the first round of questions. You all remember the time rules, and you remember we will be strict with them. And we give the floor now to the coordinators, starting with EPP and Mr. Dennis Radke.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm going to speak in German. Ja, liebe Roxana, herzlich.
Roxana, you're very welcome here in our circle, and thank you very much for a comprehensive presentation. I would like to delve into a couple of points. You talked about labour mobility, and I think that a key issue in terms of economic growth and the question of competitiveness, you mentioned Regulation 83 or Directive 83. What are your concrete plans to promote cross-border mobility? And secondly, the future of the European Labour Authority. As a Parliament, in January we adopted a resolution about the future of that authority, and in terms of members of third countries and so forth. And it'd be good if you could say a few words about that as well. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Radke. Mobility, I think, is at the heart of the Quality Jobs project and at the heart of our competitiveness drive as well. So that is why I will have it on my desk from day one in terms of working with you to complete 7.5 years' work on the 883 regulation modification. I think in this aspect, there's been already so much that has been gained. Obviously, so many complex topics still remain on the table. What has been gained is really, really important for our mobile workers. And I really think that we have a new parliament, a new commission, a new drive, and obviously we'll have also a new presidency in the first half of the next year. And my plan is to give it a go. I want us to work on 883. I want us together to do our best to deliver on the modification that has been under debate for so many years. I want us to use the gains that have been obtained for our workers, and I want us to find the solution for what has remained on the table in terms of unemployment benefits and all the other technical aspects that are the prior notification that are important. So obviously this is a work that I will do with you and with the Council, but for our Europe, it is clear that more and more our mobile workers are relevant, are important, and their rights and their protection needs to be ensured. And this is important, but obviously taking up on the fact that the Parliament, this House, has also requested the strengthening of the mandate of ELA, I would support the strengthening of a mandate once I see the evaluation, which is now performed by my services. My interest is that we tackle all mobile workers, third country nationals as well. Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Radke.
Ja, vielen Dank.
Thank you very much. That was clear in terms of ELA, but in terms of labour mobility and what we should do next, in 883, the question is whether in one council presidency after another we will be coming up against this issue, or will we have the idea that the Commission must make a new proposal, because both from the points of the view of employees and employers and the A1 certification and or AI certification and so on, then we will need to make progress. So maybe the introduction of the European Social Security Pass would be Plan B to resolve the issue.
Exactly. Thank you for the follow-up. The S-Pass is the next level of protection for our workers. Currently, this is a digital solution that is piloted through projects that are financed through Digital Europe, through the involvement of certain member states. We will look at the way that they are piloting on the A1 portable format document and on the European health card. We will look at the end of 2025 at the results of the pilots, and obviously we have to take into consideration what some member states already have in place in terms of systems that do work for them. So this is not an easy answer that the S-Pass can be delivered just as a consequence of what we are piloting with EU intervention, but using this kind of input, the input from the S-Pass pilot projects, the expertise, the best practices from member states, we will go forward.
Thank you. Then Keulemans, SND.
Cher Vice-Président. Der Executive Vice President designate, members of Ample. Roxana, the portfolio that you have been designated for is not only important to our political group, but also and particularly to the workers and citizens of Europe, for whom we are responsible. We have to move them towards a fairer and more social Europe. Now, apart from the major challenges that we're facing, the impact of digitalization and artificial intelligence is one. We have already heard a lot about that. We've seen a lot of how that affects employment, needs for transformation, retraining, quality of employment, working conditions, work-life balance, or protection of private data. So my question is, to accompany this digital transaction, are you committed to a particular directive on AI at work and the directive on the right to disconnection, or putting teleworking into a specific framework on with a gender balance perspective and in terms of social consultation? Thank you.
Thank you. Rights should be rights, offline or online, and this is the bottom line. So if this is the bottom line, as I've announced in my opening speech, obviously it will be at the heart of a quality jobs initiative that I will be focused on. On right to disconnect, things are very, very clear. From day one, when I take up my mandate, if you confirm me, obviously, I will launch the second phase consultation with the social partners. This is extremely important, and as you've mentioned, because on the right to disconnect, we have a pretty strong impact on female workers, stronger than in the case of men. So this is a gender issue as well, but not only. We have to acknowledge that AI and technology offers opportunity, offers quality jobs in itself in many industries. It can do so, but we need to look at labor market relations. And this is what I will do. Obviously, the AI Act, obviously the Platform Workers Directive, in certain ways approached the issue of human-centric approaches of the AI, of regulating what happens for platform workers, but what happens to workers that are in physical environments and are impacted by algorithmic management. This is an important issue. It will be a core part of my quality jobs initiative, with other aspects as well, because we're looking at mental health, obviously. So this is the commitment that the core of my work will be to have a strategic response in terms of policy, potentially legislation, and that will help us to ensure that the rights of a worker are also protected and respected, even if he chooses hybrid or telework or other ways in which the online dimension is present. So this is clearly a strong message that I want to send so that all Europeans understand it, not just opportunities, but protection when we have AI and algorithmic management at work, but still supporting our companies to be agile and competitiveness. I don't want to burden them.
Merci.
Thank you very much indeed. Well, as you've underlined, you have to set up a plan for these 20 points. Now, it's very urgent to act as far as the deteriorating nature of working conditions and the increasingly precarious working condition, which is leading to poverty and lack of workers, particularly for teaching and caregivers, but also presents a serious risk that young people will not be able to get into high-quality jobs, and unfortunately will lead to a growing risk of mental health risks. So my question is, what are your specific commitments in terms of quality jobs? We're talking a lot about this generally, but specifically, and do you propose to set up or to propose a directive concerning burnout and psychosocial risks? Thank you.
I would want to first have us all look at the impact of the current legislation. This is important because you have certain directives that are in place, and we need to understand, do they cover psychosocial risk? Do they cover stress, anxiety? Do they protect our workers? Are they adapted to our current challenges? And then be strategic and be looking at quality intervention in terms of delivering policy and legislation. But obviously, This is also part of the Quality Jobs initiative that I want to support, and that together with social partners we want to define. So bottom line, this is also a very important aspect, that we need to have mental health of workers protected. This is seen in the statistics, and this is seen in the health reports, but we need to do it strategically inside a very impactful type of legislative or non-legislative intervention.
Thank you. Didier, Patriots.
Oui, merci, Madame la Présidente.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Commissioner-candidate Mînzatu, a few weeks ago in the guidelines for the Member States' social policies, the Commission called for the retirement age in Member States to be raised. In France, Emmanuel Macron, moreover, has followed that directive very closely against the majority of the French people, and he didn't hesitate to overturn the National Assembly vote to that effect. Can you confirm that you wish to stick to that political line? If so, what do you plan to do with those populations that oppose it? On this note, we've seen that the political position shaping up behind European integration, especially the current members of the coalition in Parliament, are systematically excluding from any role in the institution those who represent a substantial portion of the European population. Can you confirm that treating tens of millions of European citizens is in line with your view of democracy?
I would want to maybe ask you to repeat the first part of the question, if it's possible. Can we have it very short?
Allez-vous suivre la directrice?
Are you going to follow the line taken by policy on increasing retirement age? Are you supporting that line or not?
Sorry. Pensions are regulated in member states, but we are living indeed in an aging society with new challenges in terms of how we approach the length of our presence in the labor market, let's say. What we at the European level are doing and should be doing is ensure that we have adequate pension systems in all member states. It is not an EU competence, indeed, but we have the tools to look at the systems of our member states to ensure that adequate pensions for which contributions have been provided are offered, that all the conditions, that the sustainability, that the cost, the financing, that the investment in these pensions is one that is sound and that is also stable. This is the level of involvement that technically we can have from the EU level. But for me, it's very important to note that we have a very important gap between men and women in old age. We have a gap of income due to in-work poverty in decades previous. And this is very important to note, because this type of element is what we are looking at when we are trying to use the semester, the European social convergence, upward convergence framework, in order to look at member states' plans concerning the social rights, the social investments, the social expenses in their member states. Beyond that, obviously, it's a discussion related to demography in each member state, to the labor market, history, evolution, and that is something that we must respect in terms of national competencies.
Then short follow-up.
Oui, je vous remercie, Madame la...
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. The second part of my intervention, I didn't hear your answer to it, Madam Mînzatu, so I'd repeat this issue of democracy. I didn't hear you regret the fact that the third biggest group in the European Parliament doesn't have a single vice presidency, doesn't have a single committee chairmanship. And what does that mean in terms of the fundamental values and principles of the European Union? Are you against these democratic values and principles? If you're against those principles, how can you seriously envisage your role defending European interests, which as a minimum, require you to sign up to those fundamental values?
I am all for European democratic values, supporting our shared values that unite us together in this common European project. And democracy also means the freedom to vote, the freedom of alliances, which emanate into structures that generate leadership positions in institutions and in democratic institutions. So obviously my support for democratic values is full, and I can only confirm that that will be seen throughout my work.
Thank you. Then Gemma, ECR.
Grazie.
Thank you, Commissioner-designate. In your written answers, you state that the next European Commission will invest a lot in people, confirming giving Erasmus Plus a crucial role in the transition to the labour market. But we know that many European young people have to give up on it or can't because they can't manage the accessory costs. So what instruments do you envisage to contend with that, the financial cost for students in through reasonable management of European resources? Looking at young people with a disability, then the difficulties in covering the costs associated with that in accessing essential services becomes completely impossible. So I'm asking you, what specific measures do you envisage to supplement and to make Erasmus Plus truly inclusive for all of those, including those with a disability? Thank you.
Grazie, honourable member. It was my first request for our services in the Commission when I've met them in preparing these hearings that Erasmus needs to become more inclusive. I was one of those potential Erasmus students who could not afford to take a scholarship because the resources were just not enough to take up on a mobility. Obviously, in recent years, Erasmus numbers have improved. Some 17% of the total beneficiaries now come from vulnerable backgrounds. My ambition is to go to at least 25%. I would want that at least 1 in 4 Erasmus beneficiaries come from vulnerable backgrounds, and that we have the resources to support them. Obviously, my mission letter says that I will strengthen Erasmus, and I will strengthen Erasmus, first by making it more inclusive. But second, also, I want to look at how we will tackle those that are more in need. And I think that we need to look at top-ups. We need to look at synergies, Erasmus and European Social Fund Plus. In my country as well, and probably in some member states, we have tested combinations of interventions from Erasmus and other financing sources so that we can afford to give supplementary support to certain vulnerable groups. Even now in Erasmus, young people with disability have special formats of mobility and some special forms of support. But I do agree with you that it is not enough, that it is the way in which we should strengthen our program, and that's will be reflected in a democratic way, I'm sure, even in the civic and democratic engagement of those young people that we will be able to support. And we are now living outside. We are leaving them outside of this such popular program. So my commitment is, yes, to increase significantly the vulnerable beneficiaries and also to offer additional support.
Thank you. Ritorno ancora su...
Going back to the question of people with disability, the Eurostat figures indicate that people with a disability have to meet serious obstacles in many walks of life, particularly true in the case of access to education and training and employment, as you mentioned. So I ask you, how do you intend to create synergies with the portfolios of the other competent commissioners to deal with the over 120 million people with disabilities in Europe to acquire the skills necessary for their active participation in the labour market? Will you take into account an initiative such as the Youth in Guarantee, but designed specifically to encourage the participation of people with a disability in the labour market? Thank you.
Thank you. As we are looking at closing the gaps on our labor market, I want us to look very closely at ways to support our youth, people with disabilities, in ways to be activated, to have chances to work. Assistive technologies, an example of synergy that I would want to offer. I would want to work with the Vice President for Cohesion, for example, to have in place assistive technologies for people with disabilities so that they are able to work. On the child guarantee, I will work obviously closely with the Commissioner for Youth, who has the strategy on children's rights, but my priority, connected to the first European anti-poverty strategy, will be to strengthen the child guarantee. We have earmarked funds now for certain countries to the child guarantee recommendation. We deliver. I can give you maybe some examples, maybe not now because the time is not on my side, but I will strengthen it with a special look for vulnerable young children and children with disabilities.
Thank you very much. Now it's Jana Thum from Renew.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Commissioner-designate, for your presentation. When we're talking about quality jobs and social rights, my mind goes to the workers that live in regions dependent on fossil fuels. Hundreds of thousands of people are going to lose their jobs and livelihoods as the continent transitions to climate neutrality. In the previous mandate, we adopted the Just Transition Fund that was meant to help these workers, not only the fund scheduled to last only 3 more years, but we have also not seen enough jobs being created as a result. Certainly not when I look at my own country, for instance. How will the Commission ensure that the Just Transition Fund is used efficiently and effectively for creation of jobs in the affected regions? Are you going to look at the implementation of the Just Transition Fund to see how much it contributed to creating quality jobs, and if it did enough to change the local economy of these regions towards other sectors? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. The Just Transition Fund, which I do not lead on, but which is very important for the work on social rights and on jobs and on quality jobs. So I will closely work with the Commissioner for Cohesion on that, and with all my colleagues in the Commission, of course, is, I think, a tool that can deliver. Again, I would combine it in terms of intervention that it has on place. It has interventions in terms of skilling workers affected by the restructuring of their economies, in terms of creating new jobs, new startups in the region. There are already opportunities in place. The results are mixed, and I think we should give it a bit more time to assess it. But let us have in mind, again, the synergies, combining it with what we are already doing with the European Social Fund Plus on skilling, on reskilling. Looking maybe into other types of tools, and I was mentioning a social investment, so that where maybe the intervention from a single instrument, such as the Just Transition Fund, is not sufficient, we can combine it and have more impact on the ground. I really believe that we need targeted tools like the Just Transition Fund. Again, it's not my own, but I know it, I've worked with it. It's a territorial instrument. There are regions where the territorial uptake and capacity has been good, has delivered results, regions where it does not offer the jobs or the skills that are expected. But overall, the skills portability initiative that is also at the core of my mandate will also look at this aspect, at how we can support those that are affected to uptake, to take, or to better make use of EU instruments and funds to get green skills, tech skills, or those skills that allow them to make better use of their potentials. So that's how I would see it. Let's combine the instruments and see how we can do better, and let's acknowledge the territorial benefit of this instrument for a just transition. Use the lessons that are favorable.
Not your portfolio, but by accident, this is about jobs, which are your portfolio. And as you're responsible for preparing a quality jobs roadmap, and are you planning to look at the fossil fuel dependent regions for preparing this roadmap? Are you committed to deal with them? For this is a really separate issue, and this is very sensitive issue. And if European people believe that just transition is unjust, this is a huge problem. So in the terms of quality jobs roadmap, what is your approach to this issue? Thank you.
the best value that we can offer to the quality jobs roadmap is to work at it with the social partners. This will be essential. And then we will have the right ingredients to tackle regions that have been affected by the restructuring of their economies, energy-intensive industries, and so on and so forth. So I want the approach in my mandate to be as pragmatic and where possible to have the sectoral approach very on place. So example is very good, but the social partners' involvement will be key so that we can deliver on certain industries, on certain sectors. Also, let us not forget the Social Climate Fund, with which we will intervene, certainly in a different maybe way, but we will intervene to mitigate the costs, the social cost of our climate transition, let's say. So yeah, I will be keenly active in having the jobs initiative, quality jobs initiative, tackling these aspects.
Kim von Sparentag, Greens, Eva.
Thank you very much. Dear Commissioner-designate, we already discussed the world of work is drastically changing, and strengthening workers' rights and accompanying workers in the twin transition is really key to fulfill your mission. And you already mentioned the impact of digitalization in the world of work. Algorithmic management and more general, the deployment of AI is rapidly spreading across the entire labor market, and there's already ample evidence about the effects it has on workers' rights. We successfully regulated this for platform workers, and I think we should build on this. The AI Act recognizes that automated decision-making poses significant risks to decent working conditions and fundamental rights, but it does not actually regulate the use of algorithmic management at work, nor labor rights. Do you agree that the current legal framework is not sufficient? And will you propose the initiative on algorithmic management announced in your mission letter in the form of a directive? And will it cover the protection of workers' rights, fundamental rights, health and safety, transparency, and how to organize social dialogue on its introduction and use? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Palentak, honorable member. True, as mentioned before, I have looked at what work has already been delivered with the involvement of this House, of the previous, the current Commission. Actually, they are still in place, and their progress is really commendable in terms of having in the AI Act, in the Platform Works Directive, some very clear and groundbreaking aspects recognized, that AI management, that algorithmic management should be human-centric, that it has a certain impact on the work relations. These are in legislation, and these directives are now to be also the directive on platform workers will be enforced, and it's important to see how it is put in place. But it is not enough, my opinion. Is it not? Do I have a response that going beyond means also legislation on non-legislation? Not yet. But what I can commit to is that it is a priority, because it's not a priority for me only or for you and for the current generation of workers. We are talking here a lot about poverty and children and their rights. They will be the workers who will be most impacted by AI at work. This is the most important topic I want to discuss with them in the youth policy dialogues. Obviously, they might be not so interested now in regulating AI at work and what type of protections we will include or not, and how we balance it with the competitiveness of the companies. But for our children, we have to do it. We have to look at it. And I will champion this in the Commission, together with my colleagues, of course. And if you will give me your vote to do this work, you can count on me.
Okay.
Thank you for your answer. But discussing the twin transition, it's of course not digitalization alone that is rapidly changing our jobs. The entire economy is undergoing a deep transformation in order to meet our climate goals. And in this, we can't leave anyone behind. And in this context, workers need to be equipped with green and digital skills. How will you ensure the right to training for all workers is ensured in the context of the twin transition? And also, you've been tasked to develop the Quality Jobs Roadmap to ensure just transition for all. For this transformation to be successful, workers need to have opportunity to be involved in shaping it. So social dialogue will be key. Will you propose a directive or a just transition that guarantees the mentioned training and the anticipation and management of change and effective information and consultation of trade unions? Will you make sure the Green Deal is properly reflected in the Quality Jobs Framework?
Thank you. I think we need a skills revolution. It might not be a breaking news title, but it is a reality. Skills portability is one way to explain to our people that we need to step up on our ambition to have adults that are skilled and reskilled and protected against or helping them take advantage of these adaptations of the economies in which they work. So I do think we need to look into aspects such as who pays for the training, can the employee do it during his hours, his working hours, or outside of the working hours. So count on me to look at this specific approach in terms of respecting what is a social right, which is the right to train. So this is very, very important. And obviously, it will be part of the Quality Jobs Roadmap. In terms of anticipation and management of change, first, we're looking at the current situation of legislation, how the information and consultation of workers is going, and then looking at new approaches in terms of involving social partners in the management of change in companies.
Leila Shaibi from the left.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Chère Madame...
Thank you very much indeed, Madame Manzatu, Commissioner-designate for People, Skills and Preparedness. I must admit that I've been trying to find the Commissioner-designate in charge of employment and social rights for the last 2 months. And now I feel that we found the Commissioner-designate, at least for employment and social rights, but I am very taken aback that it doesn't say it on your card that describes your portfolio. Would you, like me, like to see social rights and employment actually included in your portfolio? And a second question already raised by 2 colleagues about artificial intelligence at work and the need to have a directive. You responded that you'd need a potentially legislative initiative, but you don't know yet what the response will be. Will it be legislative? But I'm sorry, that's not enough. The social model and wage model is based on labour relations and the subordination. If that is done by an algorithm, we need legislation. So I want to know, is that something that you can commit to from within the Commission to push for that?
It's yours.
Thank you. I would want my work to speak for itself, as my speech has shown where my priorities are, and you have understood how important social rights and jobs are for me. Not the one who obviously can select the title, but I would be gladly open to any change that would happen. For me, it's about the core of the work, and the core of the work is in the pillar of social rights, and that's what has to be reflected in what I deliver. So that's an honest answer concerning the title. On AI at work, I understand. I think you're the 3rd Member of Parliament who is today mentioning this important topic. And this for me is important. Hearing you, listening to you, working together with you, as it has happened in the past, will be key for me, because that shows me what the priorities are. Clearly, it's a top priority, and clearly we will have to look at all potential avenues to ensure that our workers' rights online are protected for our future generations of workers more than for ourselves even. So you can count on me, as I've mentioned, and I thank you for putting up this topic again.
Mrs. Shaibi, follow up.
Thank you. Well, my second question, or third question, in fact, concerns the directive on public procurement that is envisaged within this mandate, 2,500 billion in public money that is carried out in public procurement carried out by private companies. There's no control, no conditionality in terms of workers' rights protection in those. Now, we're talking about environmental and job problems, because price, the lowest price, is basically the only main condition there. So there's a simple question. I'd like a simple answer. Do you commit to the revision on the public procurement to have obligatory social conditions concerning that? Do you plan to be directly involved, you and your services, in revising such a directive? Thank you.
I've worked on implementing public procurement directives, so I know how important it is to very well calibrate the conditionalities with the potential burden you create for companies. Having said that, we need more tools than ESF, Social Climate Fund. I mentioned it. We need more tools. Social conditionalities and public procurement and social criteria and public procurement are something that we need to look at seriously. Again, having a very balanced approach, because I want our companies to have the flow, investment flow running. So I will work with the Vice President designate on prosperity, who has on his table actually, as the President von der Leyen mentioned, the modernization of the procurement directives. They are needed also in terms of supporting European products and services and companies. And I will be a champion to include such criteria. But again, let's see in what terms, compulsory, non-compulsory. We need to be strategic.
And I give the floor to Peter Volgin from ESN.
Госпожо Mînzatu.
Madam Mînzatu, you as a socialist, you know very good that whatever the social policies, they will remain ineffective if the general economic condition degrades. And it does because of the energy prices. And here I want to point to the sanctions on Russia. Then we have the energy neutral economy, and then we have the militarization of the economy. Charles Michel and Ursula von der Leyen defend this idea. It is said that for defense we need more than 500 billion euros for defense. And Brussels actually says that we need huge defense expenses at the cost of other budgets. Will that be at the cost? Will that go at the cost of the European citizens?
Never. Without protecting our citizens and their rights, there is no European Union, there is no political project. That's what we are here for, together, to support, as I've mentioned, a social Europe. What we do have to do, and this is clearly a challenge for our generation of politicians, not just for a commission or the current parliament, is to look at how the next multi-annual financial framework should be built, at new types of tools, as I've mentioned here, looking at social investment, public, private, at new platforms to support our citizens. Yes, we will have the Social Climate Fund to support our citizens, our households, in face of energy poverty, in face of transport poverty, our companies. We have tools in place to support them, whose resources are insured, will be insured, but we need more. And this is the challenge, not to become less, but to be able to cater both for the security of our Europe and to the prosperity and the protections and the rights of our Europeans. One without the other are simply unimaginable. So our challenge is to look at all potential sources and investments in order to cater for the priorities of our project. But I am here to support that the rights, education, employment, social protections of our workers, of our children, of our people with disabilities are protected and are ensured to keep our Europe strong in the future.
Follow-up question?
No mic, unfortunately. Thank you. In your written answers, you said that the next commission will be an investment in the commission. This includes investment in the people. But together with that, we see the tendency of investments because of ideological inclinations, such as green investments. The private investments are tackled by private liability. Now, 20% of the budget of the European Union of your portfolio will not be used for investments to discriminate, to degrade the living standards in Europe. Anti-Russian actions and the green ideology are detrimental enough. How would you strengthen social rights of Europeans?
Thank you. I do not think, for example, China or the United States, who are investing huge amounts of money in their green technologies, would call it ideological. It is a state of the, or is a fact of reality that we need our technologies, our economies to pollute less in order to protect our planet, our lives, the future of our generations. So this is clear what we need to understand, that the values that we share together are the values of a Europe that is going to survive, first of all, and contributing to a green economy is essential. So the important aspect here that we have to look at is that we are also competitive on the global market, and Europe has really the chance to be, or is, a leader in many green technologies. It is economically smart, not ideologically, let's say, debatable, to have Europe invest in this sector.
Thank you very much. And now we will go to the second round of questions. 1 minute for the questions and 2 minutes for the answers. And I will start by giving the floor to Mr. Zdrojewski from the EPP.
Bardzo dziękuję.
Thank you very much. I have to say that there is no one here who would think that education is less important than other areas. However, there is no education in the title of your portfolio. Have you given your opinion on that? And I would have a question about Erasmus. Erasmus is composed of many elements: higher education, vocational education, lifelong learning. Do you intend to change the proportions when it comes to these tasks, narrow something down, broaden something else, but also finance? Higher education, 34%, vocational training, only 2% for physical education, for sport. Do you have any plans to make any changes when it comes to these proportions? And the last thing, Erasmus Plus is a project that we are proud of. This is the most important project. Do you intend to add something to this program, to make it richer, to enrich it, or maybe you intend to reduce it? Thank you very much.
Reduce it? Never. I will make it stronger. And not only in terms of the mission letter. I've mentioned that I wanted to make it more accessible for the vulnerable categories. But more than that, I wanted to finance more of what the future of our Europe needs. For example, right now, it finances the European universities, the European University Alliances, which for me are the blueprint of the future, a way to stop brain drain in a way, and to offer future to our students in multi-campus universities. And Erasmus Plus does that, access to tremendous resources in one complex alliance. So I want Erasmus to do that for schools as well. So it's important to say, first of all, not how much money, but what do we want to do with Erasmus in the next generation of financing? What are our ambitions? And then we will find the money, and I promise you that we will. Yes, we're looking at the current figures. This is one discussion. First, I do higher education. Second, vocational. If I say vocational will be priority, I upset universities and the other way around. So that's not the idea. It's the type of vision that we deliver. And one part of my vision is that I want to strengthen the vocational educational training. This is essential for what we're discussing here: skills portability, ensuring closing the labor gap on our markets, one of the solutions. And I will want to work, as I've mentioned in my opening speech, in a similar way in which we worked on the higher education level to support the blueprint for future European degrees in VET. Their recognition on the market should be emphasized, let's say. But yes, I want to make Erasmus stronger, and we will make it stronger in terms of what we want to deliver through it. And together, I think we will work on the next, let's say, phase of the program, and it will be financially sound in the next MFF. I can promise you that.
Mrs. Bishop, S&D.
Dear Commissioner-designate, dear Roxana, I mean, you heard it, a lot of workers in Europe have strong concerns about their future amidst all these transitions. And even the word transition triggers with many workers already rejections. And this is why, if we want to change it, we really need to have tangible results here. Our policies need to empower workers to feel optimistic about their future. And to achieve this also, the workers need to be involved in changes. This Parliament came up with a proposal in 2021 for a directive on just transition, strengthening democracy at work, and also anticipation of change. In your Quality Jobs initiative, this package, will this play a role here? Will you take this up to make sure that we can have and develop policies that will come up with concrete solutions to address this? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, dear Gabi. Indeed, you are right. If you want to have on board our workers, our populations during these, yes, transitions, changes that our industries are going through, we need to empower them. So I totally agree that beyond information and consultation, through the involvement of social partners, we need to have a stronger stance in terms of how we engage them, how they can anticipate what is happening to their companies, how they can be involved in the evolution of their companies. Obviously, together with what I've mentioned, also being able to skill them continuously so that they are strong and resilient and can take benefit of whatever changes happen. So yes, in my Quality Jobs initiative, I want this aspect to be very strong. Looking obviously at how the current legislation works is essential, but also looking at what more we could include in terms of anticipation and management of change. This will be a discussion also with the social partners in the Quality Jobs roadmap, and I hope that it is a deliverable that comes in common and joint discussions with the social partners. Key aspects will be there, and that I can announce you.
Thank you. Then Estaras Ferragut from the EPP.
Thank you very much, Chair. First of all, I'd like to talk about the very unfortunate incidents that have happened in Valencia and other regions of Spain, the storms that have caused more than 222 deaths and hundreds of people disappeared because of the cold drop, and that has led to a third of GDP, Spanish GDP being lost, and a huge cut in jobs across the province of Valencia, which is going to require support in terms of reconstruction from Europe to help the government of Spain. Now, as far as artificial intelligence is concerned, we'd want to have a commitment about the necessary human supervision over this and developing artificial intelligence for all the benefits that that can provide and how to improve the digital skills of workers across Europe to help inclusivity.
What was the question? So I understood was there a question, or you mentioned, was there a question? Because
¿Me pregunta la pregunta?
Are you asking me what the question was? I'm sorry, 3 questions. So, help is it going to be help for jobs for the Spanish government, and is there going to be something about the artificial intelligence and what we can do to stop people being discriminated against? Thank you.
First of all, I want to pay my condolences to what happened in Valencia, where a lot of my fellow Romanians have suffered loss and some died. And natural disasters do that more and more. The European Commission has intervened through the RCC with the identification, with the mobilization of their technical resources. Also through our common civil protection mechanism, with our pooling of resources, of civil protection resources that are offered by the member states. These are the types of support that have been put at the disposal of the government of Spain by the Commission. In need, we can also use the RescEU, which is the highest level of common resource that we put for civil protection. And that can be obviously at any time offered to alleviate in case of disaster. And that is why it is important that we have a coherent and common response to disaster management and to crisis management. And the EU does that. And in terms of AI at work and how it impacts the lives of workers, as I've mentioned, on the one side, we have to acknowledge the fact that it does provide workers with the opportunity to be flexible, to do hybrid, part-time, remote jobs. It does maybe even generate new types of jobs and new types of opportunities and helps people get on the labor market, people with disabilities. But we need to also regulate, in terms of quality jobs, their rights and their protections against mental distress, against their care responsibilities in the home. And that's what I will do inside the Quality Jobs Initiative.
Grise, Patriots.
Madame la Présidente, Madame...
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Mînzatu. I'm asking about the European talent pool, which you mention as one of your priorities in your written answers. In the Asylum and Migration Pact, the talent pool is means to elicit applications from third country nationals to meet gaps in the labour market, and that might that risks a brain drain in those countries, and also nationals of third countries might come into Europe on the basis of this and stay there illegally after the end of their permit without having worked really. Would this not facilitate clandestine immigration? Can you undertake to confirm diplomas and qualifications for migrants? Can you agree a readmission policy with the third countries concerned? And would what about the benefits of this for those who refuse to take advantage of it? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Well, the EU talent pool is exactly the type of mechanism that we want to set up so that we manage in a beneficial way the workers that are coming from third countries, and they are already coming. And they are coming and working sometimes in poor conditions, and sometimes are exploited, sometimes become homeless, and so on and so forth. And it is a mechanism through which we can also look at the employers, what they offer, what the conditions are. So this is a safety first, let's say, approach to matching the demand and the supply. Those that are requesting jobs, and Europe needs jobs, and we look at the care industry, at how many more carers we need, and those that are the constructions, and those that are coming and requesting jobs in Europe. So I think that the EU talent pool is the way into which Europe can really make sure that those third country nationals who arrive have their rights protected. In terms of the drain that we might generate, although, as I've mentioned, they're already coming, the EU has also the talent partnerships in place, which is an instrument that ensures that in those countries of origin, we invest in the skilling and the preparation of those that are there, that work there. And this is a way through which Europe is doing its part in ensuring better education and opportunities for third countries. So this is important. We have to look at the EU talent pool as one part of the whole solution that we need for a competitive labor market. We are having workers missing from many, many important industries without which we cannot deliver. We have to activate our own, but we also need a legal way to manage migration for those jobs that are necessary.
Thank you. Magoni, ECR.
Grazie, Presidente.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner-designate, sport is an important part of the economy, representing a large percentage of the GDP and employing 6 million people. Now, the impact is also in terms of the upbringing of our children. So what measures do you intend to put in place to ensure that sport plays a key role at the EU level, above all in connection with the Erasmus Plus portfolio you've been given? What do you intend to do to step up development programs for sport, projects which are a way of defending the values of sport and allowing young people to tap their full potential? And then lastly, do you not think that people with disabilities must also have the opportunity to master sport for themselves, given that this kind of opportunity isn't part of the equation today, and it will help them in terms of jobs, independence and dignity. Thank you.
Yes, I want to mainstream sports in more of our policies, Ms. Magoni. Together with my colleague, Commissioner for Youth, obviously, and Sports. I've mentioned many times in conversations I've had with you that, yes, we support Erasmus mobilities for sports professionals, but that's just a small part of what we need to deliver better. Sports means preparedness. Sports means health, mental health, physical health. Obviously, we have the cohesion policy in place, which in some countries delivers programs through which sport is used, and I've tested these instruments. Sport is used as a social inclusion instrument. I've worked on it with Roma young people, and it's the best way to offer them values and opportunities and self-confidence, and to integrate them and to promote them, let's say. Sports is therefore a tool that I would see much better mainstream than, of course, what it is now: performance, a strong industry in Europe, a European-based sports, values-based and European sports model, the solidarity between the grassroots and the competitive side of it. So you can count on me to support it, and also to have a special attention for young people or for adults with disabilities who can and should be supported in terms of engaging into sports activities. And again, here we can invest in assistive technologies that will allow them to be part of activities, sports activities, and even competitions. It is important to note the Paralympics, what has happened in Paris, what will happen in Italy soon. These are strong messages that we are giving, that we are including all of our citizens into all the benefits and rights, including the right to train, to be healthy, and to play sports.
Fareng from Renew.
Commissioner-designate of skills is a revolutionary concept, finally implemented by the Draghi report. But now we need action and proper willingness to achieve something on the part of the member states. There's two key elements. One is the European degree, and the second is automatic recognition of all degrees and professional qualifications. On the question of the European degree, even though it's only starting out and it would harmonise skills and lead to mobility of our workers in the future, it's already meeting resistance by the member states. What can you do to overcome those obstacles? Secondly, automatic recognition of degrees and professional qualifications. We've been working for years on the European education area. It has to be finished by 2025, but we're far from being at the finish. So what would you envisage doing at this in this regard? And I would, particularly in terms of skills and professional qualifications. And then higher education, there's no portfolio for that today, higher education, so I'd like to know your views on that.
Thank you. I believe in the European universities, and obviously an European degree. I know that we are talking also about, academic autonomy and academic the autonomy of universities, the different positions of member states in terms of moving a bit more ambitiously forward with university alliances, with European degree, and even with the recognition, automatic recognition of diplomas. But inside the union of skills concepts and inside the European education area, I think that's what we must do. We must be more ambitious. It's a question also of political will from the member states, not just of initiative, but I will put on the table the work that is necessary to be more ambitious in terms of automatic recognition and European degrees. So what we are doing right now and what we should be doing in the future is to first ensure that European university alliances have the chance to obtain a legal status, then to explore all the potential options that could be accepted by member states in terms of European degree, because there are options on the table. Some are softer, some are degrees per se, some include the European label. Let's look at all these options, because the idea is to offer the students the acknowledgement that they have received a program that is multi-campus, multi-research, multi-university, and maybe they even return home, then they have the right to stay. And in terms of automatic recognition, on which we have a council recommendation from 2018, I even looked at the member states and how they are doing in terms of quality assurance, in terms of putting forward the system that allows for mutual recognition. Obviously, there are still a few countries in red, and my intention is to work with each member state one-on-one bilaterally to gain their support, to gain their engagement and their commitment so that we get through with these very important elements of the Union of Skills. So my work with the member states will be key on aspects like that in order to deliver on a true European dimension of education.
Firea, S&D.
I would like to ask you about young Europeans as well. 1 in 6 people in the European Union is young. For them, the European institutions have set up programs in the field of education, social and health, IT and digitalization for mobility and transport, equal opportunities. How can we make sure that all young Europeans from the cities and from rural areas, from richer countries or from countries with slower progress can access the programs, including for increasing the birth rate? Thank you very much.
We need a Europe that looks at all territories, that looks at all regions, that look at all backgrounds, at all vulnerabilities, and ensures fair opportunities. And for the young people, this is more important than with any other, let's say, category, although they are our future. For them, we have put in place the youth guarantee, which has delivered actually for some 50 million young people in Europe in terms of an offer of employment or training, an apprenticeship. So this kind of support was especially targeted for young people from vulnerable backgrounds or from regions or from areas where the precarity was stronger. I want you to know also that in the future anti-poverty strategy, the EU anti-poverty strategy, the first ever of its kind, the age dimension will be essential. I want us to clearly have in place responses to tackle youth unemployment and youth opportunities, children being also supported through the child guarantee, but I want us to look very closely at the young generation in terms of young people also with disabilities or from different kind of minorities and communities. This is very, very important. So that's how I would see a response for you. We cannot put in a silo the discussion about supporting youth. Okay, we have the solution, we use Erasmus. We have the solution, we use the European Social Fund Plus. No, they have to be present in the discussion, as I've mentioned, about potential legislation on workers' rights, on AI at work. They have to be present in the discussion about the mobility of work, and they have to be supported through European Social Fund, European Social Climate Fund, in terms of energy poverty, and so on and so forth. I want to mainstream their needs in all of our policies. And that would be my answer for them.
Sunčana Glavak, EPP.
Hvala vam lijepa.
Thank you.
Parliament, I will now switch in Croatian. Jasno je da Evropa
It is quite clear that Europe is speeding up its digital transformation, and this is, I believe, that media literacy and strong digital skills are of key importance in order to make sure that the youth are the stakeholders of the new future. There is the digital plan for the period from 2021 to 2027. What steps are you intending to take in order to make sure that digital skills are part of the school curriculum, that they are able to critically think, recognize misinformation, and are capable of responsibly managing internet content? How are you going to support member states in the standardization of digital skills in order for us to ensure that we get consistency and quality that we badly need? And how are you going to monitor progress and impact during the implementation of the plan? Thank you.
Thank you. Such an important question and topic. not just for our democracies, but for our resilience, for our security. Media literacy is critical, and it has shown so many times, it is shown that those who lack it can be manipulated and can be victims, and we do not want that for our Europeans. Indeed, we have the digital action plan, which is one tool through which the Commission is tackling, including aspects that relate to, including in the curricula in the schools, digital education, let's say, which has obviously more components, not just media literacy, but overall digital education is an important aspect. Education is something, is where we are supporting member states, and we are financing them as well through the Recovery and Resilience Facility, for example. We are financing training on digital solidly across many member states. This has to be told to Europeans. But we are also supporting member states through expert groups, because it is important. If we're talking about, let's say, digital education, we might only think about the good side of it. But there is also the more worrisome part. If there is AI at work and there is AI at the education level, how safe is it? How do we manage it in terms of safety and protecting the intimacy and the rights of the children, of the teachers? So the expert groups that the European Commission and the services offer are working exactly on guidelines, on standards that will help teachers across Europe, member states, institutions in charge with education, to implement in a safe way, in a useful way, digital training, and also to make use of digital resources in a safe way, but also to stimulate them, to give them models, to integrate them in the curricula. Again, we have programs, we have Erasmus, one great example, not only that, through which we stimulate digital education, but standards are the most important.
Diana Riva, Greens EFA.
Thank you very much. Welcome, dear Commissioner. You have acknowledged, and I'm linking up really to the question that was just asked, you've acknowledged that media and digital competencies, the media are vital for navigating the complex world that we live in. And this connection between education, the media and digital world and languages is very important. We've had a study on digital literacy that this cult committee pushed forward, saying that we are going headlong into a monolingual culture, which is English, which is leaving behind 60% of Europeans, particularly in this digital area. The gap between English and all other languages that are official across the EU is huge right now in the digital and media field. So I'd like to know what your views are on how we can promote this multilingualism. Thank you.
Great question for someone who learned English just through the digital and television programs. Indeed, we have the ambition in the EU that our population will speak at least two languages besides their native language. And we are indeed failing a bit behind this task and this ambition, but we must not give in on this temptation, let's say, and we have to work with our younger generation and with our students, and in a way to make use of technology, of AI, in terms of making it more attractive for students to have intake of more languages, because there's virtual reality that can do so much for teaching, including for teaching even Latin in the Roman Empire, and even, a language that will connect you with the space where that language is spoken. Especially important for very small, there are no small languages, but for regional languages, which are very important for the identity of those people. So I am a supporter to enhance this part of our European identity, the multilingualism. It is essential to do it. And obviously, I think that the angle we should use is to use our funding and use our policies and guidance to encourage the use of technologies to enhance the intake or the take-up of learning of new languages. This is the way, I think, and not being a victim necessarily of the monolingualism that is happening due to technology.
Lisbeth Sommen, EPP.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, Ms. Mînzatu. Thank you for this interesting discussion. Mental health. What actions are you planning to improve mental health and well-being of workers to promote healthier workplaces? And do you commit to put forward an EU action plan on mental health? When do you intend to put forward a legislative proposal on the right to disconnect? And what will its main features be? What new and revised occupational exposure limit values are you planning to propose? And what is your position towards the list of prioritized substances by the Advisory Committee on Safety and Health at Work? Moreover, how do you plan to facilitate the everyday lives of especially cross-border workers? And would you agree that regulatory obligations on workers and employers are only a good idea if they are proportional to the goal that we want to achieve? Thank you.
Yes, mental health, as mentioned even in my responses previously, is so closely interlinked with platform work, is closely interlinked with the situation of our young generation being very exposed to the new media. So obviously, I think mental health should be holistically treated on the one side in terms of the youth and the children's rights, and that is essential, but also in terms of adult support. If we are talking about adults, we are talking obviously about safety and health at the workplace. And there we have, as you know, strong legislation in place. Obviously, legislation needs to adapt. We have advisory committee working on that, but we need to look at the new challenges of the workers in order to be delivering new protections for their health, including their mental health. So while on the quality job initiative, I will clearly look into the psychosocial risk aspect, which is essential, which has been taken up by several of these members of this House. This is only part of the discussion in terms of approaching it. It has to be part of other types of initiatives, as mentioned before. In terms of how I will approach the updating of the rules concerning the safety of workers in face of hazardous substances, again, here we rely on strong legislation, on the advisory committee who is delivering, and on my services to be a bit quicker on the way we update this legislation. So we have received the input from Parliament as well. We have the expertise on table in order to devise ways into which we maybe quickly be able to update our legislation. And this is the commitment that I can make, that in terms of hazardous substances, we will be more efficient and more agile to respond.
Nikos Papas, stay left.
Good evening to all. In your written replies, you often talked about the need to enhance STEMs in the European area of education. On the contrary, you don't talk about humanities and social studies, whose graduates have problems finding jobs. What are your priorities to enhance the opportunities to find jobs, and how will you interconnect educational institutions, businesses, and the public service for quality jobs? Is there also a plan to recognize the qualifications of humanities and social sciences in the European Union market? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And you are right, and discussion about promoting STEM is obviously relevant. We need experts, we need engineers, we need women engineers, we need labor force, and we need our people on board, but we cannot ignore the arts part, and that's why I think that a STEAM approach would be much more useful in terms of having an intersectionality, a cross approach when we design curricula, that we are certain that while delivering for science, for technology, for maths, we are also including in that curricula critical thinking and an education for society, societal education, which is clearly needed. And we were talking about learning languages a bit earlier. So this is clearly the approach that I have. I do believe that a strong partnership between the education system, the businesses, the future employers is very relevant. We have one example, innovative even, the European Institute for Technology, which the European Union is deploying, let's say, the EIT, who is doing this job of connecting through the skills academies, for example, in the green industries, in the battery, the solar, is doing this job of connecting the businesses with their opportunities, their needs, with the education and with the innovation part. So I believe that we have to continue to be a supporter of these types of partnerships. As I've mentioned, beyond that, I think that it is very important that we support the vocational and educational training, which is a component where the business sector is very close to the educational path. And that way, we are sure that we are offering our children, our youth, the best of opportunities when they graduate and they go in society and in the labor market.
Marianne Wind, S&D.
Thank you. Dear Commissioner-designate, the European Parliament has recently adopted a strong resolution on the mandate of the European Labour Authority, ELA. In which specific areas do you intend to strengthen the Labour Authority to ensure fair labour mobility and support for mobile workers in Europe? According to Principle 5 of the European Pillar of Social Rights, employment relationships that lead to precarious working conditions shall be prevented. Against this background, will you come forward with a proposal on regulating labour market intermediaries and on a limitation of subcontracting chains, which are often used to disguise employment relationships to avoid tax and social security payments, to escape legal responsibilities, and to exploit workers? Such an initiative should complement the necessary introduction of mandatory social criteria in public procurement rules.
Yes, thank you. As mentioned, I think we need to take action in terms of mobility. And as I've mentioned, again, I'm committed to work on ELA, the European Labour Authority's mandate, to make it even more efficient, although I think we can see that, although it's a young institution, it's delivering more and more, but the joint inspections need to deliver more in terms of protecting also the third country nationals. I am worried about what is happening with the agency and with the posting of workers. My greatest concern is that we need to have solutions in place for those that are coming from third countries to an entry country, whichever that may be, and then quickly post it to another EU member state where their rights are not respected, their rights are not protected. So the idea is that I will be looking very closely into how we can make sure that, or first see that the current legislation is doing its job, and if more is needed, then take up on that. We'll look into also the subcontracting practices, but also first let's assess what the current legislation is doing, if it's failing in terms of legislation or is not implemented fully in member states. And on public procurement, as I've mentioned in my responses earlier, we need to be balanced. Social criteria are useful, but we also need to make sure that our companies are still agile and being able to invest. So I will have both elements while working with my colleagues in the Commission and the revision of a potential directive, of the directive on procurement. But yes, be assured that mobility with all these facets are on my table, are among my priorities, as in the speech, as I've mentioned, and they will deliver for Europe.
Pál Székeres, PFE.
Tisztelt biztos jelölt asszony, fogyatékos emberként különösen érzékeny vagyok a diszkrimináció.
Thank you very much. Commissioner-designate, I'm in a wheelchair and I'm very sensitive when it comes to discrimination. I'd like to ask whether you would make a distinction according to political outlooks of MEPs. very often we feel that in this situation where we have migration, people with disabilities are going a little forgotten. Do you have a strategy for the employment of people with disabilities? And also, I'm thinking about a work-based society. That's very important. Do you, for example, prefer to have tax breaks or incentives rather than handouts? Thank you.
In terms of supporting better people with disabilities, especially to help them when they can enter the labor market, I think an important starting step is to look at the good practices of our member states. So it's true that in some member states, one solution that was successful is to allow for the persons with disability to retain their social benefits and return to work and gain a salary. And thus they were much encouraged. And this is, I think, one way to guide, let's say, politically speaking, and to learn from each other in terms of better supporting people with disabilities. Again, I think that the tools that finance our vulnerable citizens, including people with disabilities, the programs should be a bit more targeted and focused. I work with people with vision impairment through the European Social Fund Plus in Romania, and we really managed to take assistive technologies to reach some targets in terms of employment for some categories. So it's important to also look at our policies, our tools, our financing tools, and to target a bit better the needs of the people with disabilities. Obviously, the tool that we have on hand is the strategy for the people with disabilities, and through these strategies we deliver all initiatives and all recommendations and guidance that the member states should and can use. But for me, what is important is that we also learn from each other, and I think that in terms of the last part of the question, this is a good example in terms of, sure, tax benefits could be an example, that there are also other ways into which we can stimulate those beneficiaries to take up jobs. But we also need, through the disability package, guidance for the employers so that they can adapt the labor force, and we do that as well.
Georgiana Teodorescu, ECR.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With your permission, I will speak in Romanian.
Good afternoon. I think that European citizens have heard so much about this demagogic talk from the Commission, who's just saying they want to make life better. But Romania is suffering from poverty in education, which is not good, which often leads to school dropouts, and it's impossible to really have a decent standard of living. We need concrete actions. So we need... We've been going through your written answers. So you're talking about a fund for the social climate fund, and that's been implemented since which will be coming in from 2026. But we need to do something now. You can't. We need to know how much is at stake. Who's going to benefit from that? How are you going to make sure that this money actually will specifically support people from the most vulnerable households? Thank you very much, Madam Teodorescu. Well, the Climate Social Fund is closely linked to ETS2 system to come in 2027, as you say. Now, this is a very generous fund, but of course it's not going to be enough for the... we were talking about 90 billion euros, rather, across the member states to cover about 25% of that. This is a kind of instrument which the member states currently are preparing a countrywide plan to say how they're going to spend the money, how they're going to invest it to those who most need it, for people who are suffering energy poverty, transport poverty, and so on, based on the polluter pays principle. So there are plans that are going to be setting up in 2020-25, which would also make money available in direct transfers, vouchers for households that are suffering energy poverty, for example, and can be also help to make buildings, apartment blocks more energy efficient. They can also be going to companies, not just individuals. We need to be part of this climate transition, and the transport sector will also be concerned because we're going to have eligible transport payments too. So this is something that will allow systemic investments to set up investments for green energy, solar energy, storage for energy and so on. And this is something that 6 billion euros are earmarked for Romania, and all of that will help towards this green transition. Thank you.
Next speaker, Van den Berg, Renew.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Commissioner-designate Mînzatu. Thank you for pleading for a skills revolution. It is so necessary. The EU has been working on the skills agenda since 2015, and I wonder what especially vocational trained experts have really noticed of it. I hope we can make results as concrete as possible this mandate. I hope, but we have to put then vocational trained professionals at the heart of our policy. So yes, let's increase the numbers of vocational trained participants in the Erasmus Plus program. And let's invest in the centers of vocational excellence to increase the cooperation between business and educational systems. But most of all, most important of all, can you commit to making skills truly transferable and diplomas of vocational training recognized across Europe by the end of this term? We have more competences than we have in higher education. Let's make a better result than we made for higher education. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member, Ms. Van den Berg. The skills portability was put in my mission letter for this exact reason, that it cannot be business as usual, that there have been attempts and we have had some stepping stones and some achievements through the European Year of Skills. We are having on the table the skills agenda, but we need to talk more clearly about portability. And that is the essence and will be the essence or the angle through which I will approach this initiative in the next 5 years. Do I want to deliver in 5 years? Obviously, my intention and my energy is committed to being as fast as possible. But this is the work that we deliver together with you and with the member states and with the social partners as well. And I would be glad also to have a very sectoral approach in terms of, okay, let's support VET for certain specific areas in the beginning where there is an increased need and where we can really show impact and inspire more action. What I can say is that, as I've mentioned in my opening speech, I want to make the European vocational training a bit more stronger and the European dimension and the degree recognition clearly put in the, let's say, in the front seat. This is the work that we will do together. Cannot commit on delivering by the end of the mandate, but can commit that this would be my ambition, obviously. It is also important to note that we can stimulate a better let's say intake or better uptake of the vocational and educational training systems, not just through Erasmus, but again through cohesion policy. We have the RRF. We are investing a lot of money, so we can in exchange better, let's say, target our ambitions in terms of also skills portability. Quality assurance will be of the essence. Guidance on the framework of diplomas, we can deliver that as we've delivered for higher education.
Princi, EPP.
Grazie, Presidente.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner-designate. Now, having worked in a school, I agree with what a lot of you said about the strategic but not very attractive role of the teachers, and because of the social aspects and the training of European social capital and the quality of teaching. In terms of teaching and lack of teachers and lack of properly trained and paid teachers. I'd like you to explain how you intend to involve the member states in fleshing out the European agenda for teachers to improve their social credibility and their career progression. I would also ask you, in a world of work that's rapidly changing, there's been so much talk about skills. Can you specify more how you would make central the role of the teaching profession, especially in terms of promoting the skills of the pupils? Thank you.
Thank you for this question. For it all starts with the teachers. Whatever we have discussed so far, it is fully dependent on how many teachers are available, if they are motivated, if the working conditions are right, if they remain in the job, and if they continue to train, to deliver with AI, with generative AI, and so on and so forth. So the teacher's agenda, which is in my mission letter, shows the importance that we put on this topic. Obviously, looking at how we improve the salaries and the working conditions of teachers is something on which we work together with member states. We do have shortages of teachers in 24 member states, almost everywhere, with more problems on an aging teachers generation, let's say, in many member states. The intervention that, or the political commitment that we need to have together is one that is necessary if we want to discuss about competitiveness, about STEM, about better basic skills for our young generation, and about adults that can reskill and upskill. On the one hand, I think that it is important that we not only commit politically with member states, but we as Commissioner, you can count on me from this side, use the European semester instrument, use the instruments in which we look at how the policies of member states are aligning in terms of employment. You use the upward social convergence framework in order to also give recommendation and stimulate our member states to invest where it is needed and in the career of the teacher it is needed. True, we have through Erasmus also teachers' academies, tools which we enhance the way that they are being prepared and motivate them, supplemented, but we are talking here about systemic measures, and for those systemic measures we need to be a bit more ambitious. So important aspect that I will work on very closely with member states and with you.
Thank you. Papandreou, SND.
So far, so good. I like what I've heard. You get an A+. I'm standing out of the room for a second. For me, we're in the same party, so I like your answers. You seem to know what's happening. I want to continue from the previous question, line of thought. You can't hear me. I'll speak slowly. I want to continue. It's English, actually. I want to continue the line of thought before about the teachers. Most of the focus has been on those who are taught. But the important thing is the teachers, as you point out. And there we have lots of problems. You said there'll be more response to that. The working conditions are very important. And let me add one more new thing of the last 15 years to the working conditions. The teachers, besides competing with bad infrastructure in the schools, besides the energy of young children, they have to compete with iPhones, with smartphones. Some countries are banning them in schools. I think that's something we need to consider, these ideas about how to deal with the new world.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want the kids of Europe not to vote us forever anymore? None of us will ever see daylight. We are all addicted to technology, adults and young generations alike. We must acknowledge that. But yes, I think that we have to flip the way that we look at AI in education. On the one hand, as we mentioned, it's about, potentially addictive to young generations, and they're not paying attention to the classroom, but we can use it to make the classroom, to make the curricula more attractive. That is our challenge. Obviously, now we are discussing about generative AI and how it generates content, and there are a lot of sensitivities, but we have the AI Act, which clearly states that it is high risk when we're discussing about deploying technology in schools. Having that in mind, we are taking care not to be, let's say, to go overboard with using technology. I think we are forced to deploy technologies in education as well, in terms of making education more attractive and the teacher career easier, with the right checks and controls, with the right measures to ensure rights, to protect the teachers, to protect the intimacy, to protect the confidentiality and all these aspects. We need not to avoid what technology could mean for our education. That is the balanced approach. So this is the path that teachers can use also to have better, and for them we have to deploy obviously financing and guidance, the guidance that is already provided by some experts in our services and commission in terms of trustworthy AI in education. That we have to take AI on board and technology on board, but put in place safety and rules that protect. This is the only way forward.
Meleti, EPP.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Commissioner-designate. First of all, I'd like to tell me how you intend to tackle today's challenges of workforce in the healthcare sector and the lack of workforce in health professions. Will you cooperate with the Commissioner for an action plan for the crisis in the health sector, for an action plan to include specific targets, benchmarks and measures and funding to tackle this problem, but also to tackle the brain drain? And since brain drain is affecting young people, what policies and what funds can be used to boost the employment of youth? And if these measures can affect women as well, because women constitute a large part of the healthcare workforce.
Thank you. In terms of preparedness, there are certain workforce sectors that are critical. Healthcare, teachers, carers. And so the healthcare sector is, and the healthcare workers, I look at what we need to do for them, even from that perspective, that it is important and essential that we deliver. We have to deliver on multiple levels. Obviously, I will work with the Commissioner for preparedness, because the preparedness side is of such importance, since COVID has shown that to us, but in terms of strategic autonomy as well. So we have to look in terms of how we help them have their diplomas, degrees, skills, better recognized, although they are automatically on the automatic recognition procedure, but to support them in this aspect as well. I think we have to invest in their training, and again, European Social Fund Plus is investing in skills. In some countries, mine included, where I come from, we invested on an operational health program, deeply ESF money for skills. We can do that. That is really essential. And obviously, I think that we should use the concept of the European University Alliances in order to somehow balance the brain drain. This for me is essential, in order that some of the alliances, some of the universities could tackle closer the idea of training, or our priorities for training in the health sector, with all that technology can offer, with all the newest responses in terms of health. And with the university alliances, I think that we offer our potential healthcare workers the opportunity to train in the best universities, but still remain in those countries and work, or at any rate have a more balanced distribution of healthcare workers across the member states. So beyond skills recognition and investment in these workers, I think the European University Alliances targeted on medical could be an interesting point and I will work on it.
Next is Zaharia from the Non-Attached.
Thank you. I will speak in Greek.
Madam Mînzatu, the indexes of the European Union depend on the performance of the member states. So the Commission with the Council will have to have standards through regulations. Greece has abolished since 2020 the free collective bargaining, and the minimum age is defined by ministerial decision disregarding the European directive. What is your view about the substantial participation of workers to the collective bargaining, given their right right, and this is included in your reply, but their consent is not referred to the signing of the collective bargaining. In addition, Greece has abolished the 8-hour, 5-day week, and as a result, workers do not have free time and working time and free time balance, and there is this affects their well-being.
Thank you. So, through the Minimum Wage Directive, European Union offers alternatives, offers models of intervention that best suit the economic and labor market realities of each member state. And while collective bargaining is obviously the goal that is clearly set in the directive in terms of offering the best support and the best resources to workers, the minimum wage, adequate minimum wage, is also a very efficient tool that protects workers. And through the directive, there are just, options and alternatives through which, an algorithm through which each member state, depending on the productivity, on the level of the medium income in the country, depending on the situation of the economy, can establish and then adjust the formula for that minimum income. That is the role of a directive, and that is the intervention that the Commission has provided in terms of offering options for member states, but also making sure that those member states protect their workers and protect their income. So in terms of the duration of work, we have legislation in place, legislation that stipulates how the workers are protected in terms of minimum duration. There is a change in the world of work. Many countries experiment with longer or shorter working weeks. They are all responses to the changing and shifting realities of the way in which we work and in which the generations now and the future generations wish to be engaged in the world of work. The essence is that we have the right protections in place for the time that is worked in terms of working conditions, in terms of fair remuneration, and for that we have the minimum wage, adequate minimum wage income, and other directives to ensure that.
Vice-Patriots.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Commissioner-designate, in your opening remarks, you said that the Erasmus Plus is a key example of what Europe does best. Then, as an answer to your colleague's question, you said that you intend to do more and finance more the vulnerables. My question is about a particular vulnerable group. Due to the political disputes between the European Commission and the Hungarian government, a significant part of the Erasmus Plus funds were blocked, resulting in more than 10,000 Hungarian university students being excluded from the program. After Mrs. von der Leyen's speech in Strasbourg in connection with the Hungarian presidency, presidency program, we can clearly say that the debate between Brussels and Budapest is not professional, but of a political and ideological nature. Whereas the European Commission seems to treat Hungarian students as collateral damage in this political blackmailing. By applying the principle of collective culpability and discrimination on national grounds simply for being Hungarian raises serious concerns. How do you plan to solve this situation? Thank you.
Thank you. Europe wants its Hungarian students back on track, and for that I am pleading with Hungary and inviting you to solve those legal issues that have shown that you are not committed to all the European values that join us together in this union. We are financing and we are supporting and delivering policies throughout our Europe, but obviously it is of the essence that we commit and stay strong by our shared values. Academic freedom, academic independence, the autonomy of that is essential. So whether Hungary is able, it's on its doorstep, whether Hungary is able to solve the problems that or the breach into which it is concerning the public trust universities, let's say, and then it will allow for the flow of money to return and for the students to get this mobility opportunity. It is up to you, and I wish and I hope that the Hungarian government really understands that. Otherwise, I'm happy that Erasmus money for Hungary is in Hungary and that the resources have been redirected to vocational and educational training according to the desires of and the priorities of the Hungarian people. But what is essential for us is that we stay strong by our common values. And if we stay strong, then no one will have to get hurt, especially not the young generation.
Next is Toms from S&D.
Agradeciendo a la Comisión con la que está tratando las solicitudes de ayuda hechas por parte del Gobierno de España por la terrible dana que ha afectado a Valencia y otras regiones y, por supuesto, mandar todo el cariño a todas aquellas familias afectadas. Sobre la Estrategia Europea de Lucha contra la Pobreza, su contribución al Plan Europeo de Vivienda Asequible y viendo los datos de Eurostat que muestran que los precios de la vivienda en la Unión Europea han aumentado un 48% de media en menos de 10 años y más del 100% en algunos Estados miembros, quería preguntarle sobre qué iniciativas legislativas tiene previstas en relación con la estrategia contra la pobreza y el plan de vivienda y si contemplan medidas específicas con respecto a las mujeres, a las personas jóvenes.
Concerning women who are in people who are in a situation of vulnerability, in order to guarantee decent housing for people with a low income so that we can do away with homelessness. And finally, as far as the European Child Guarantee, we've been asking for a specific a budget for at least 20 billion euros. Apologies that the interpretation was cut off at the start.
So just be aware that I've heard 80% of the question in Spanish. The translation did not work. What I want to take from your question, that is of the essence, and thank you for giving me this opportunity, is that we need to connect the first ever European affordable housing plan with our anti-poverty strategy. Because there's a lot of discussion that it is correct that we need to have an anti-poverty strategy that addresses the raise of the prices, the increase of prices, even for categories that are now at the extreme poverty. But let's face it, for me at least, the important aspect will be to make sure that we offer solutions in terms of investment, in terms of, funding, public, private, state aid, and all kinds of models that we'll put forward that, first of all, tackle those that are more in need. The young generation, for me, it's important. We have to send this message that our affordable housing plan and our strategy against poverty will first and foremost look at the young generation, their need for housing. This is essential. We need to tackle homelessness. This is also of the essence. We need to tackle the needs of people with disabilities. So this interconnection is essential. So thank you for giving me this opportunity to send this message. I will work with Commissioner in charge on energy and housing in terms of the best tools, policies. I'm not calling them legislation. I think here it's more about funding, but obviously there will be probably discussions about changing state aid rules, as you know, as it's been in the guidelines, political guidelines of President von der Leyen. We need to do more in terms of housing. In terms of child guarantee, we have some 9 billion euros spent now. Some member states who have the poverty level of children above the European average do have to earmark 5% of the ESF plus money. I want to strengthen the child guarantee. I will not commit now to an amount, but we need to get money from more resources because having meals for children means resources from more places than just the ESF.
Sabine Verheyen, EPP.
Thank you very much, Commissioner-designate Mînzatu. The promotion of our culture and cultural heritage is also part of your mission letter. Recent national media reports claim that after having been county council of the Brasov county and the day before you took office as deputy prefect of the same county, you bought a house that is a historical monument in the center of Brasov. Later on, you extended the house, doubling the size without any of the legal permits required. Can you confirm that you extended the house without the legally required building permits and authorization from the Romanian Ministry of Culture? As the ministry confirmed according to the media reports, with this in mind, how do you see your future role as Executive Vice President of the European Commission, also responsible for culture, which includes also the protection of our cultural heritage? How do you value the legislation and promotion of the protection of cultural heritage?
Thank you for this question. These are the facts. I have bought a 60-meter square house in which I was born, in which my family had lived as a tenant since 1974. So 50 years ago, my mother rented this social house, 60 square meters. A house that was owned by the state during the communist regime with no paperwork in order. A house that was never a historic monument. My mother is 90. The house was built during my mother's time. I have, from the Ministry of Culture, official paperwork from 2011 and from this Monday, yesterday, attesting that the house is not a historic monument. It was built in 1949. Again, yes, we extended it because it was 60 meters. I was sleeping with my mother. I slept with my mother in the same bed until I was 17. And my father in the kitchen. We did extend it after I bought it in 2009, because that's why we bought it. It wasn't a historic monument, but we bought it in order to modernize it, to have good conditions. We were talking about housing. We had a leaky roof. We didn't have hot water. So obviously, we did submit for permits in the city hall, certificat de urbanism, as it is called in Romania. But indeed, we only finished the procedure after the extended version of the house was in 2011 was finished. We entered into full legality. We paid taxes. We are in the registry from 2013. It was in my declaration of assets always. This is my statement on what the situation had been at that point. But just to make it very clear, this building is not a historic monument. It is a 60-meter house in which my family lived and I lived until I was 32. Now it's 110. We have 3 bedrooms. And we have the paperwork from the Ministry of Culture that attests that it is not.
Benedetta Scuderi, Greens, IFA.
Commissaria-designata, ho ascoltato con piacere.
Commissioner-designate, I listened with pleasure to your answers on the Erasmus programme and the need for a skills transition. And I have very much appreciated your willingness to put young people at the centre of your portfolio. In terms of access for all young people, there are issues with the number of stages that are allocated, especially problematic in the south and east. In my country, Italy, unpaid internships can be withdrawn numerous times, meaning it's impossible to get access to the labour market. I think this House should put an end to that practice, and the old Commission proposal was unsatisfactory. My request is whether you agree on the need to put an end to unpaid internships at a European level so that there is equal rights of opportunity for young people. Do you intend to work on this front, and what do you plan to do if so?
Thank you. Yes, I intend to work on the quality traineeships proposal, work with you, and I'm looking forward to delivering together for the traineeships are, I think, one of the best ways for our younger generation to enter into the labor market, but they should not be abused and they should not be exploited in this sense. So obviously, following the call that has been done by this House and your work, and I really appreciate it. Now we have a proposal on the table. It is a proposal that is still at which work is still being is performed. I think we need to look carefully at different sectors, situation in different member states. These differences, this personalized approach might be useful, looking at public sector traineeships, private sector, different industries. But overall, we have to agree on common definitions, on common standards, on common guidance in what a traineeship is, what the effort by the trainee is put forward, and how he is protected and how he is compensated for that work. That being said, as mentioned, my desire is that we work together to deliver on the quality of traineeships. We have a proposal. It's our work together. You define your mandate together with the council. We will be able to deliver the protections that our young generations expect from us.
Malina Malak is here.
W tytule pani portfolio.
In your job description, I read people, and President von der Leyen said that intergenerational solidarity is your task as well. Hence my question, how are you going to support families? There are many social problems such as loneliness, exclusion, or mental health problems. All that can come from the weakened role of the family. On top of that, you have material problems such as the rising cost of life because of overly ambitious climate policy of the European Union. So what actions are you planning to take to support families to reinforce the intergenerational relations to fight loneliness among seniors? How are you going to cooperate in this area with Commissioner Suica, because reinforcing families is of key importance for fighting negative demographic trends? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, families are essential, and I'm talking not only about maybe the families that we imagine, but single mothers. They are also, regarded by your question. And we need to look at how families can be supported. My angle is, first of all, in terms of the burden of care. It's not a burden. Sometimes it's a labor of love. But for many, it is a burden in terms of intergenerational fairness. Younger generation taking care of their grandfathers or fathers. Women that are especially working or supporting members of their family in a type of work that is unrecognized, not protected, unpaid, obviously. And so I think that the best angle or the best way to present our work, the work of the Commission, is that we will focus on the situation, the working conditions of those that are in the care sector, let's say. I want us to have a European care deal, which means looking at who are the people who are taking care of those vulnerable. Are they paid? Are they protected? Do they have in old age a pension, or for the years on which they are taking care of someone, those years disappear and they are left with no protection, and we see what happens with old age poverty. Talking about old age poverty, it's essential to again admit this gap between the pensions of women and the pensions of men. Almost 30% poorer the women earning pensions, receiving pensions than the men. Poverty is striking them ever more. So this is one aspect of work that I will focus on. In terms of energy poverty, I want to tackle families and households to the Social Climate Fund. I've mentioned earlier that we can use it to offer subsidies to those that are affected by poverty and have them in the European anti-poverty strategy clearly individualized.
Risto Petrov, Renew.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll speak in Bulgarian. Уважаема госпожо Мînzatu.
Madam Mândri, the informal methods of education through sport or art may be very useful in fight for equality and education. They can teach people and children, actually, what Europe is all about. Now, accreditation is important, but many young people face all kinds of barriers, including financial and others. Do you think that these means of education can be supported by international mobility for young children?
Obviously, yes. Interesting question about mobilities for young children. We are We are talking a lot about Erasmus and what it is doing in terms of mobility, especially for students and for the vet students. But also, as you have seen in my mission letter, my hope that we will work together on what it is the European Schools Alliance. I have high hopes and high ambitions in terms of developing this model of cooperation and mobility between schools that is somehow inspired by what European University Alliances are already doing in terms of allowing children to access classrooms, teachers, resources, experience, and gather skills, critical skills, horizontal skills, not necessarily talking here about curricula sectorial, in other countries, in other regions. That's what creates, in the end, our Europe. That's what strengthens the European identity. While we understand that talking about schools in member states, the national education system and the regions have their own rules in place, I think everyone wants to have the chance to have more Europe, more European dimension in the education of children, because that means quality first and foremost. So this is, I think, the European School Alliance, let's say, is the direction through which I would want to channel attention in terms of let's say, making a better offer for our young generation, showing them how the classroom can be and how the teaching experience can be in other parts of Europe, and allowing them to come back enriched. I would be very happy to work with you on this topic.
Zuzana Bovendek, ISN.
A szót. Írásbeli válaszában úgy fogalmazott, hogy fontosnak tartja Európa.
Thank you. You talked about educating people in terms of the common history of Europe. You thought that was important, and keeping diversity. What do you think about the January 2024 resolution of the European Union, in which it talked about historical consciousness? Do you agree that member state history books should be European history and world history rather than national history? Or rather, do you think that national history in a member state is important for conserving the national awareness? Do you think that's very important, or do you rather want to develop a homogeneous history?
We are Europeans because we are Hungarian, because we are Belgian, because we are Romanian. This is essential to have in our school books and in our programs. All the aspects of our diversity is essential. It is equally essential not to neglect our European identity in our teaching, as it is important to have the national or regional dimension. Our identities are multifaceted, and that's what we should teach our children in a spirit of tolerance and of inclusion and of understanding the other cultures, the other nations, their other specificities. That's how I think we should go about it. But obviously, we are here in Brussels. We are in the heart of Europe. We are trying to move forward the European project. And while each member state designs the curricula in terms of history and geography, local or national, we here have to take care of explaining all generations what it means to be European, what it meant in 1945, what it meant in the 1960s, what it meant to be a Romanian in Europe in the 1980s when I was born, in what it means to be in France in 2000.